front of me, but it's muted. And I look up, and there's Bao Phi performing on TV. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, if that is not an omen, a good just goodness saying, you're on the right track, fat man, you know? So as I was eating my pho, I took a video of it, and then I sent it to him, and he's like, oh, wow. He's like, yeah, okay, let's do this. And so we're here. And so it has been a year in the making of getting Bao to come out here. Well, it wasn't hard, you know, which is great. And getting to have coffee with him today, I've learned that I was right to ask him to come out, and I'm so lucky that he's come out, and I think we are too. Folks, please, all the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota, to José, the only Bao Phi.
Lovely introduction. And not just for that, but can we give Mike and everyone who was involved in bringing us together tonight a big hand? There's a lot of invisible, thankless labor in putting something like this together, so sincerely thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you all for coming out on a Friday night for poetry. Arlene, RC, thank you. Really great to hear your work, always. A couple shout outs. Thank you. MJ, thank you. Like you all, like what's like an hour and a half, 2 hours from the Bay to come see me. You know, people in Minnesota, they won't drive 12 minutes to see me to St. Paul. You know? So thank you, sincerely. It's really good to be here. I'm just going to read some poems from my second book and some new poems for you. First poem, I have to explain a couple of references to you just really quickly. I always joke that my explanations are now longer than my poems. But when I was, I'm from a refugee family from Vietnam. I was born in Vietnam and I was a baby. And when we came to Minnesota, the adults would organize these like Vietnamese cultural shows, you know, because these are people who like lost everything. They weren't planning. The difference between a refugee and an immigrant is usually refugees aren't planning on leaving, right? So my parents lost everything. And so they would rent out like a VFW or a hall, and they would do like cultural events. They would do poetry, singing, dancing, all this type of stuff, right? And you would go as a little kid, and you'd be like, this sucks. You know what I mean? And so you would go with the little kids, and you would leave, and you would go and try to find video games to play. And back then, video games were in a cabinet, and you would put a quarter into it, and you would get 3 lives. So that's all the explaining I could get. Refugees from Prom Center, the 80s. Who says Asians can't dance? Have you seen old Vietnamese people cha-cha and tango like their feet and hips asked to be colonized? I'm walking away with kids older and taller, blocks away. The promise of video games in some arcade or maybe the front of a grocery store. I hate Vietnamese people, one of the boys says suddenly. Scowl like a blue marble switchblade. I hate my own people, he laughs. Make sure we get it. I've only got 1 quart, so I hold it in my palm, and I watch the other kids play, including the hater, who puts his quarter into a slot, does his best to control his 1 man out of 3. I can't remember what game he played, or whether I cared that he hated Vietnamese people like me, like him. No, that's a lie. I know I didn't care. I was rooting for him, even after I saw him lose man after man. So I've been doing this since I was about 16 when I turned 50 next year. I have a child. I come from a poor family. They're bougie as fuck. But You know, like there are times when I see that they understand where their father comes from. I mean, it's not that hard. My parents still live in the hood in Minneapolis. So when we go visit them, they see and they understand. And you know, like when I was a kid, you know, kids in grade school, they would always go to these things like Wisconsin Dells, which is a thing in the Midwest, or like Disneyland or all this other stuff. And then, you know, the poor kids would hear about it and we'd be like, well, that sounds cool. This poem is called Lights. Small handle with fiber optic cables springing like snakes from Medusa's head. You press a button and tiny colored dots at the end of the translucent strings would light. The day after the Shrine Circus, all the kids in my class had them, waving them. My dad asked me if he'd ever broken a promise to me, and I said nothing. He never took me to the circus because he didn't have the money, not because he couldn't keep a promise. How do you say that to your father? 30 years later, my kid and I go to the circus. It's the first time for both of us. They hold my hand and want to run past the bouncy castles, the face painting, the pony rides, all things they love, all things that cost money. Sitting alone way up in our seats, waiting, I ask, why? Why don't you want to be where everyone else is? Because I don't know if you can afford it, they whisper. Then lean their head into my chest, and I'm glad they can't see my face. Later, after the Orientals have been introduced and pretzel thrown themselves into the thick air, the circus runners turn out the lights. Over the loudspeaker, some asshole will tell all the kids to lift their glowing butterfly wands, lightsabers, laser pistols into the air and wave them proudly. Show them off and tell us over and over that if we want one, if we really want one, we can buy them from the men holding enormous bags lumbering up and down the aisles like mercenary Santas. The light up things pulse, illuminating my child's face in hyphens of light as they stare across a sea of bright things, 1,000 blinking promises never asked for, 1,000 flashing neon signs telling them what they don't have. That's internal shit though, they're fine. I buy them all types of shit. So don't feel too sorry for them. You feel sorry for my parents, so don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sorry for my kid. So I'm terrified of bugs, and I wrote this poem to get over. So there are these house centipedes that look like hairy mustaches that are super fast.
No, thank you.
They're actually beneficial insects. They eat worse insects, but people are terrified of them because they're scary. I'm terrified of them. But they're often mistaken for silverfish. People call them silverfish, but that's not the right insect. Not a silverfish. A large centipede was in my tub for days. It looked like a prehistoric zipper made of needles. A firecracker with too many fuses. I skipped taking a shower for way too long. An unspoken promise, hoping it would disappear on its own, preferring to be dirty over drowning my fear. Eventually, I trapped it under a container. Took it outside while it scrambled like an explosion of exclamation points under the foggy plastic, and I let it go. These centipedes are often mistaken for silverfish, when they actually make dinner of them and other more damaging pests. I know what it's like to be mistaken for something else. To feel that the first reaction when a new set of eyes encounters your body is to want to smash you. To wonder what in history made a caterpillar, a ladybug, a ladybug. To know what it's like to be invisible until revealed to be ugly, alien thing, hairy wiggle, whose body tells the only story anyone is willing to hear. When it shook free of my trap, its head made of step ladders its body a spasm of 100 loose threads of fate. It didn't make a sound, but I swear I could hear it scream that it wanted to travel back in time. Rewrite the many veins of possibility. Shape how it would be seen so that the present could be a place where finally it could be understood for what it really was. I'm gonna close out with this a handful of like really short new poems. But before I do that, I wanted to. So Mike, so one of my children's books is A Different Pond, and Mike told me he really wanted me to read a couple of things loud. He was like looking forward to it, but he can't make my reading tomorrow. So I'm just gonna read the pages now. Mike, are you still in the
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, I'm gonna just read it to you now, just these 2 pages.
God, I love you. I'm gonna film it.
It was really kind of you to bring me out and to say the nice things, and also for reading this to kids. I appreciate it. So this is called A Different Pond. It's loosely based on when we were refugees. You know, both my parents growing up, they worked multiple jobs apiece, and my dad would take me fishing like at 4 a.m. at like these illegal places, to put food on the table. It wasn't like for sport or whatever. And so I wrote this children's book about it, and I'm just gonna read 2 pages, but don't worry, 2 pages is like 15 words. All right. The street lights look brighter, and the roads aren't so busy before the sun comes up. Dad turns on the heater and tells me stories. A kid at my school said, my dad's English sounds like a thick, dirty river. But to me, his English sounds like gentle rain. That's for you, Mike. Yeah, it's funny, Eminem, he has a persona, Slim Shady, and it's like, it's bullshit, it's the same goddamn person, right? It's the same persona, right? Like Slim Shady, Eminem, fuck you, you're the same person. But me, for real, I have 2 personas. Like, when I read children's books, I'm like, hey kids, I love you, love life, everything's great. And then I'm here with you, I'm like, fuck you, fuck you, fuckface, you know? Like, I really do have 2 personas that I perform. You're not gonna show this video to kids, right? Like,
Sorry about that.
It's like a really funny thing. I don't know if any of you also write Kids Lit, but kids when they're doing the Q&A, the number one thing is they want to know how old I am. And I don't know if you've been around grade school kids, but it's like they can only conceive of adults in 2 frames. It's like you're either in your 20s or you're like 500 years old, right? So I play this game with them. I'm like, you get to guess. And then I finally tell them I'm 49 years old. They're like literally like, Jesus fucking Christ. They like literally, their teachers have to go, everybody calm down. If you think I'm exaggerating, ask the teachers, they're like, holy shit. All right. So these are new poems. I'm working on a 3rd manuscript. This is Ode to a $6 Vietnamese cinnamon donut. Your artisan ingredients from the motherland should have transformed me with 1 bite. It did not. So now I stare at your broken form and ask, what have you done for the people? What have you done to address anti-blackness in the community? Or settler colonialism? Or what's happening in Palestine? What have you done for trans kids? We are a beautiful but suffering people, donut. Where is your flag, your trumpet, the saddle for your elephant? Where is your sword, chipped from biting into armor, your belt adorned with top knots of dozens of colonizers? Instead, you're the portrait of a corpulent with their mouth open, not woke but mouth gaping in slumber. No. You're the ghost of a life preserver, and I'm drowning. No. Full moon with your gut punched out. I need you. as empty at the center as you are. To be the promise of a full circle, not this crumbling thing, broken by my own teeth. On the idea that Asians are closest in proximity to whiteness. I want to win a bike race by pedaling backwards. Charge $10 for water gushing from a garden hose. Sell rust instead of rust proofing. Buy all the lottery tickets with 3 out of 6 numbers hitting. In some alternate reality, they have flying cars but haven't invented seatbelts. I prefer AI-generated nudes. Lao Tzu was just Elon Musk's Twitter handle. The Bible was written by 200 Google employees typing in tandem. Well, actually, the Winchester rifle invented gunpowder. It was the Chinese who stole the idea to blaze flowers in the night sky from those smoking barrels. A country was liberated using proceeds from American leftist t-shirt sales. Everybody's already read Okihiro. Back to the wall. Bang! Insides gush out. The fly is called a fly swatter. So I have 2 more. This is a poem I wrote. Those of us who study Asian American history know that anti-Asian violence is nothing new. It is as integral to the logic of white supremacy as any other white supremacist logic, unfortunately. I could be up here 2 hours talking about this, but please just read Gary Okihiro. Please read just at least one book by him in your life. He's a brilliant scholar who passed last year, and all I got is poems. So this poem is called "To the People Who Have Resisted the Urge to Push an Asian Person into the Path of a Moving Train." We are the lines we won't cross. Who hasn't given up their seat to a man who says he can't stand to sit with his back to the door? Who hasn't waited, preoccupied with the thoughts of escaping this or that war or sweatshop or relationship? To be Asian American isn't to be told what you deserve. By now learning that almost all stories in life end in some type of heartbreak, exhausted, turning your back, and in doing so, making you vulnerable to the combustion that is human interaction. Every human being alive and dead is a cautionary tale. Before this, there never was a before this, but if you don't know, many years I've taught myself to walk between my child and any railing they could be tossed over. Put myself between them and say, train tracks. Knowing others see us as moving targets in a steam jungle the way my parents did for me. Already, so many ghosts. To be an Asian body in America is to belong nowhere. And what people cannot hold, they push. What if, instead of being the opposite of a trust exercise, we were made sails, a purpose to turn our backs to a wind we can't even see? So I'm just gonna actually end with a micro essay. Just because so much of my shit is a downer. This is I always try to end with something like a little bit more fun for your sake, but also for my sake. But again, I just want to thank Mike McGee, everyone who's responsible for bringing us out, doing this hard work of putting us together. When we saw an ad for Peeps flavored Pepsi, my kid's immediate reaction was, "That looks disgusting." Promptly followed by, "I would like to try it." which is probably exactly what the capitalist megacorporations intended when they Frankenstein their shit together. Fine, I'll be on the lookout and get you a can, I said wearily, but then noticed that they would not be selling them in stores. They could only be won in a sweepstakes, either through their Twitters, which I don't even know what the fuck that is, or by sending in a 3x5 index card with a name and address. You see how hard your dad works to fulfill your dreams, I asked my child as I wrote my name and address from memory. Sorry. I know, I'm not supposed to laugh at my own stuff. As I wrote my name and address from memory onto a 3x5 index card and placed it into an envelope which was not even 10 feet away from me, where we were sitting, no one ever wins stuff like this, I thought. Months later, a giant box decorated with a bright yellow Peeps print came in the mail to our humble doorstep. Typical of the American experience, this oversized box contained 3 tiny mini cans of Peeps flavored soda. You know, the ones even smaller than regular Coke soda cans that you could buy at any gas station. My kid was perversely excited as they sipped the soda, tasting of marshmallows and carbonation. Not bad. Well, I thought to myself, I can't win the lottery. I can't stop global warming, or racism, or sexism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, ableism, anything else. I can't even live up to the standards I would like to hold myself to. But, once in a lifetime, I could win you some bullshit-ass sugar syrup. And I'll be reminding you of that for the rest of your life.
We're lucky people. We're incredibly lucky people. I'm so honored that we got to all be here together to experience what we experienced tonight. I always try to implore people before leaving a space where we've experienced something like this. If you've got anything out of tonight, share that. Just share that with somebody else. You know someone, you have someone in your life who needs poetry and needs, because it's not just about reading something on a piece of paper, it's about the community experience, the communal experience of sharing words with each other. Poetry Center San Jose, we have programs for everything, but really what it comes down to is we got people who really, really give a shit about the communal experience of sharing poems with each other, sharing words with each other. Big thanks to Rob Pesich. Steering the ship. There are some legends in the room tonight. There are poets all among us, and I'm so grateful for all of you. Tomorrow we have so many events. Sunday we have so many events. Scorpiana and her husband Mike went to go pick up Rachel McKibbins from the airport, so she will be here tomorrow. If you enjoyed what you saw, what you heard, what you experienced tonight, just tell people, go to pcsj.org to find out how to get more of it.